Pink Edition.
What's up, you guys? TechChucker here, and I've got a review for you of the Neca Predator Bad Blood vs. Enforcer 2-pack. Now, I grabbed this at Target, and I am super excited to have this. Look at the artwork on the back. That is super, super cool. But you may be noticing, Tech, where are the two smart discs? I contacted Neca, and they sent them in the mail. Within a week, I had them, so kudos to Neca there. Couldn't be happier. Super awesome. But let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and crack this thing open and take a closer look. All right, so how we're going to go through the articulation, we're going to do Bad Blood first and then the Enforcer. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull the Enforcer out of here, and then let's go through the articulation on the Bad Blood first. So his head is on a ball peg, and he can look up only... Let's see if we can force this. There we go. He can look up about that far, which is actually pretty darn good. He can get his chin all the way down, which is really, really good. He has good side-to-side motion, nothing really getting in the way of that. And then he's got some okay, it's not amazing. Actually, let's force it. No, he has amazing head tilt. I didn't want to force it, but it's really good. I mean, that's amazing. Moving down into the shoulders, he's got a ball hinge in the shoulder. This skull is going to get in the way, so that's only going to allow for about that much. If we do this side, this one actually goes quite a ways. Most of this is a sculpt that we've seen before, at least for the base of the body, so the articulation is pretty much what we would expect, but there's a lot of extra stuff going on here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But he has good rotation on both sides. Now, the shoulder pad on this one's going to cause some issues, so you're not going to do a full 360 necessarily, but you could if you just kind of finagle it, but then it doesn't really get you what you're looking for anyway. He has an upper bicep swivel that works well enough. Again, this shoulder piece is going to get in the way. He does have double jointed elbows. Those work. Let's get this one. I must not have loosened that one. So it can go over 90 degrees. I think it can go a little bit further, but there's so much going on here that it gets all in the way. This side definitely goes well over 90 degrees. Moving down the arm, this wrist gauntlet, it swivels at the top of that, and then he has a peg joint and a hinge in the wrist that works really, really well. These are getting a little bit loose. Again, these rotate on both sides. The hands and the wrists, those rotate both the same on both sides. They just are getting a little bit loose on these forearm pieces, so just be aware of that. He's got that standard torso articulation, but he doesn't really go all that far. That's about as far as you're going to go with that. Add in the waist, and that's about as far forward as he's going to crunch. He can go back a little bit, not a whole heck of a lot. There is a piece here that I think is causing this to kind of bind and not go any further, but there is some side-to-side crunch, especially with that waist. And it goes both sides. That's really, really good. And then waist swivel. This also swivels at the top of the torso. Moving down into the hips, we'll talk about the sculpt on this, but let's just talk about the articulation first. He can do nearly a full split. This piece is getting in the way, so this leg isn't going to go all the way like this one, but that's okay. He can kick forward about 90 degrees. That's pretty darn good. And we can get him doing that. That's pretty awesome. Both legs can do that. And again, we have that issue where the legs are attached to each other. You can move them independently. They just kind of move at the same time when you're just doing this. He has an upper thigh swivel that works okay. It's not too bad. He's got double jointed knees. Those work really, really good. There is no upper shin cut. And then we've got the ball peg in the ankle. And this is not actually as bad as the other ones. Somehow this moves a little bit more back. Forward is not so great. It does swivel, and then there is a little bit of ankle rocker as well. Next up is our Enforcer, and his head is on a ball peg as well, and he's got pretty decent looking up motion. He can get his chin down about that far, which is pretty good. He's got good side to side, nothing getting in the way of that, and pretty decent tilt as well. They did a great job with that. Moving into the shoulders, this is where we got to be careful. We've seen all of this basically before. So there is a tuber here. There is a tube hose here. Be very careful about how far you are forcing these pieces. So this shoulder is connected to, or this shoulder piece is connected to the arm, and you can move it up about this far. Don't try to swivel it all the way around. Even your bicep swivel is going to cause you issues with that tube, so don't break that. Moving down to the elbow, you've got double jointed elbows, but again, this piece hooked to the back of the tricep all the way down to the forearm. Make sure that this tube is on the outside, otherwise it's gonna pull. So one thing that you can do is you can twist the cuff, or the whatever that is, the wrist gauntlet, twist that up, and that'll put it up and above the elbow. That way then you're not breaking it off, but be very careful with that. This communicator also opens up. There's not any much for paint on the actual communicator piece. And in the wrist, he's got a peg joint and a hinge, and that works pretty darn good. And that works about the same on the other side. This one is a little bit tighter, this wrist gauntlet, for the rotation, so that's nice. And then again, same wrist articulation. Now, this shoulder piece, you're not going to get too far with that. Moving down into the torso, he's got the same torso as the Bad Blood figure. He can really only crunch that forward, add in the waist, and it's only about that far. He can arch his back about that far, and that's decent enough. Side to side crunch, not too bad. Seems a little tighter than the other one, and they both swivel. That works pretty good. Moving down into the hips, we've got those T-jointed ball joints in the hips. These work pretty good. Be careful of these rubbery pieces. Make sure that they're kind of, out of the way so they're not binding. He can get his legs apart about that far, and he's able to kick forward about this far. You're going to get some binding from this piece here in the crotch area, so just be aware of that. But he can kick forward about that far, maybe a little farther if you really push it, and he can get his foot back about that far. These also, again, connected, but this one I found is not nearly as bad, but it's still there. There is an upper thigh swivel, that works good. Double jointed knees, those work great. No shin cut, that's fine for me. Ball peg in the ankle, gets his foot back about that far. Forward only that far, which is almost nothing. And then a swivel and an ankle rocker. So overall, articulation on both of these is pretty much what we've seen before. It all really depends on how much extra stuff is on the body, which we'll talk about now. All right, let's take a look at the sculpt and paint work on both of these, and we'll start again with the Bad Blood. Now, if you're not familiar at all with the storyline, the Bad Blood is the predator who has turned on his own. On the Yautja is how I think it's pronounced, but basically he is terrorizing New Jersey. Why New Jersey? I don't know, but he is terrorizing them, and the enforcer is supposed to kill him. Let's look at this sculpt because it is pretty darn amazing. I think Neca did a great job with this, just starting with the helmet. Look at that, and if you can see, there is like a crack in the face nose area. That just looks so good. Really, really good paintwork throughout, some really nice detail. You can see there's more cracks along the helmet up in here, and it's painted so nicely. And you can see, obviously, he is taking some prizes for killing his own kind. There's a skull of a predator on his shoulder here. Looks to be some spinal columns or something here. These might be from aliens, I believe. And then some more, what I believe to be spinal columns, probably from some predators and what have you. So this is just super cool. It's just chock full of really awesome sculpt work. You got the tube dreadlock things here looking really, really good. Some really nice detail sculpted in. You've got this cool little silver piece there painted really clean. The one thing that I noticed is these elbows are kind of funky looking. There's a kind of a sharp piece here. So, when it is fully extended, it is completely closed off, but otherwise there's you know, this weird look. I'm just really, really impressed with the way that this all looks. Very, very happy with it. You can see this. The communicator opens up. He's got double communicator on both sides, it looks like, which is pretty cool. These, I don't know if these are buttons or LEDs or what they would be, but they're painted fairly clean. I love the paint color on the hands. There's really cool detail in there if you can actually see that. Here's where I have an issue, is with this loin piece. So the loin piece is connected from the front to the back with this tiny, tiny little piece of rubber. And it is tiny. I'm really expecting that that's going to break off at some point. But here's my biggest complaint, is this piece is so small and the leg hip area is so, I guess, far down that it doesn't cover that up at all. And it looks kind of crappy. So I would have liked, even if it wasn't fully accurate to the character, I would have liked to have had more of a flap, a bigger flap to cover that. Even on the front, you can really see those ball joints kind of sticking out. So that just kind of distracts from the figure. But really, really liking these skulls on the knees. Those are painted fairly nicely. Maybe a little bit more paint would have been cool, but you know, it is what it is. We've got some more bones attached to the side of his legs, which is pretty cool. I like this. It's almost like a leopard look on his foot. Both feet, I guess, and they're sculpted really nicely. You've got the toenails are actually painted. So overall, I'm really, really impressed with the sculpt work on this and with the paint work. There's just, you know, that hip area is really kind of bothering me. Now moving on to the Enforcer. The Enforcer Yaucha, or Predator. Now you probably saw in the commercial break, I broke my tube. I don't even know how I did that. I set it down and I must have accidentally broken it. But anyway, this guy, if you're not familiar with the storyline, I'm not super familiar with the storyline, but the Enforcer is tasked with taking out the bad blood who is, you know, has gone against their own kind. I believe that is what this symbol is he is an Enforcer Predator. If you're not familiar with the storyline, spoiler alert, you've got a moment now. He is killed by bad blood, and he is killed by his own helmet. He's stabbed with this piece here, which is, I mean, that's pretty terrible. But in the end, bad blood is still killed. I won't tell you by who, but he is killed inevitably. But I really like this sculpt. I'm not as happy with this one as I am with Bad Blood. Bad Blood is just really, really cool. This one's a little more plain, but I love this helmet. I think it is awesome, and I really love this piece. This is actually very, very sharp. So be careful with this. It is a little bit bendy. It's going to give you a little bit of give, but not a whole lot. There's not much for paint, but the eyes are painted. It's kind of a purplish, which looks really, really nice. Otherwise, there is no shading really on this particular helmet. The tubes are painted very nicely. There's kind of a brownish paint tint to it with the nice gold. I don't know what these are. I'm just going to call them brass things. They're probably not made out of brass, but that's what they look like. They're a little bit stiffer than the newer style dreads are, but that's okay. And the rest of this we've seen before. Obviously, we see this. We see again what I believe to be the Enforcer symbol here, and the rest of this is pretty minimal for sculpt that we haven't already seen. We've seen all of these parts before, but they're painted very nicely. You can see this metal has some really, really nice paint detail wash within there, which looks cool. Kind of a cool purple tint throughout the figure, which looks really, really nice. They've painted all of the mesh-like look on there. You've got a place for holding his smart disc, which is cool. There's really nice detail sculpted in and painted in, which is cool. I like that this flap is covering up the butt, and we don't have that same issue with being able to see all of the inner workings of the actual joints. We've got these knee pads, or I guess they're knee pads, leg armor. We've seen this before. It's sculpted really good. I like it. I think they did a really nice job. And again, the feet, we've seen these feet before. I like them. Yeah, they're they are what they are. So I am pretty darn pleased with the way that this looks. As is always the case, these Predators are fairly tall. We're just going to do a quick measurement. We'll do to the top of his head, which is about 8 inches for the Enforcer. If you put it to the top of the helmet, it's about 8.5, almost 8 3/4. And then the Bad Blood is coming in at about 8.5 inches to the top of his helmet, just standing straight up. And let's go ahead and throw Deadpool in next to them just for the heck of it, so that we can see how a Marvel Legend would scale with them. And obviously he's considerably shorter as expected. Let's throw this mezco Deadpool in next to all of them. And again, they scale pretty big, I'd say, but I am really pleased with these. They look so cool and they look really good together. This 2-pack comes with a lot of accessories, and first off, we're going to talk about the alternate unmasked heads. Now, this is the Bad Blood unmasked head, and this thing looks really, really good. It's got really great sculpt, really nice paint. You can see the little bone spiky things at the top of the head, really nicely done. You can see there's some paint detail within the mouth. Well, maybe you can see he's got some red piercing eyes in there, and the tubes are actually a little bit softer, which is kind of nice. They're pliable. And it just, the mandibles are painted so nicely. You can see the teeth here, and then the smaller teeth. It's just a lot of really, really great detail on this. And then the Enforcer unmasked head. He looks a little bit older, maybe a little bit wiser, possibly. I don't know. But this is sculpted also very, very nicely. A little bit more closed mouth. You're not going to see as much teeth. And I don't know, I like this a lot. It looks really cool. They both have a little bit of purple on them, so it is plausible that you could maybe mingle them, though his eyes, his pupils are red, which kind of gives that evil look, and this guy's eyes are not red, so that might not work quite so well. But let's go ahead and see what these guys look like with their alternate heads on. All right, and here they are with their unmasked heads on. Quite the lovely couple, I would say. This looks really, really cool. I think it's really great when we can get these unmasked heads, which is always a benefit. I love getting extra accessories for these figures, and these heads are super cool. All right, so Bad Blood comes with a couple of trophies that he has harvested through his rampage in New Jersey. So you've got a couple of human heads. They're cut in half from the top down, and then they've got hooks in them, and we'll show you how he carries those. But just the detail on these is pretty amazing, pretty gory looking. And then he's got these two skulls as well. I don't remember what creatures these are specifically, but they are tied together essentially. And we'll show you now what they look like and how he can hold at least these. These will just hang right on this little loop. And these are actually fairly soft, so you can actually kind of force them on, but those just fit on his back, so he's got his little trophies on his back, which is kind of cool. Now, I have not found where these can hang. Now, it looks like there should be some sort of a hook somewhere. I haven't been able to find another hook for these particular skulls, but on the picture on the back, it shows that they're hung here somewhere. So I don't know if I'm missing a hook or if it broke off or what, but I don't know where these should go. And our friend Bad Blood also comes with these two additional hands, which is kind of cool. You've got the two open hands that are already on the figure, and then these two for holding some weapons, which is nice. I believe we've seen these sculpts before. They're painted really, really nicely, very clean. And next up is the Smart Disc that I almost didn't get, and this thing is really awesome looking. It's got some really cool blue, almost like lightning look painted on it, and this really nasty edge. It looks like a saw blade, really, and this is really cool. It's got some paint work on the inside. Looks really, really nice. Super glad that Neca was able to find some extras to send me. That way then I would not be out of this really, really cool weapon. Now, this accessory, I really don't know what the point of this is or where it goes, but it looks to be one of the dreadlock tubers that looks to have like a bone or something sticking in it. I don't know what or like where this is. I'm assuming it's some sort of a trophy. Somebody let me know in the comments below, because I'm kind of confused as to where this goes, what we do with it, but you know, it's cool enough. And then to round it all out for Bad Blood, he comes with 2 weapons. He comes with this pretty nasty looking spear, which is sculpted really, really nicely. I love the way that this looks. It looks really awesome. It's sculpted really nicely here on the handle. You can see there's some paint apps that look really good. There's a little bit of a wrap. It appears right here. And then this arrow point is really pretty nasty looking. I wouldn't want to get stabbed with that, that is for sure. And then he comes with this sword. It's not quite a samurai sword, but whatever this is, it's really cool looking. It's obviously, the handle is made out of bone. You can see kind of a bone piece here, and then the wrapping has some nice paint on it. You got some blood here all over it, so clearly this is a highly, highly used sword, which goes very, very well with the Bad Blood Predator, since he is going out killing a whole bunch of people and slashing people's heads in half. Now, our Enforcer Predator also comes with some accessories, some weapons, not quite as many as Bad Blood, but we still get some pretty good stuff. Number 1, we get a smart disc. This is a pretty standard look we've seen before. Nice paint work, nice sculpt work. Very glad that Neca was able to find this for me to send it. It's good to have that. And we get an extra single hand. It is his left hand for holding his spear, and we'll show you that in just a second. And then we also get a mask. You can see here, basically the same mask, but that way then you can show him getting stabbed by Bad Blood. Bad Blood can hold this and jam it into him or whatever. So, and it's painted very nicely. The inside has some really, really cool detail work there. You can see that looks really good. Very, very nice. The eyes are not, you can't see through the visor, but it's still really cool. Be careful, this is very sharp. You don't want to stab yourself with it. It would hurt, I think. And then he also comes with his shoulder cannon, which is the one thing that the Bad Blood does not have, is a shoulder cannon. I don't know if that's something that was stripped of him or what. Somebody tell me in the comments below. I don't know what the deal is with that, but this is a very, very nicely sculpted piece. We've seen this before. We've seen this gun before, but I like this beefier gun, or cannon, I should say, as opposed to the ones from the arcade one were a little bit smaller, a little more dainty and delicate. This has an articulation. It's pretty good until you get down to like this. You know, it can't go up or anything, but this is on a ball peg, and there's a pretty decent range of motion for you to be able to move this around. Pretty good, and it feels relatively sturdy. It's probably not going to break, but the coolest part is just the paint. They did a really nice job. This is very silvery and kind of glossy almost, and then you've got that black wash that just really makes this thing pop. So this is really, really cool, and in a moment we'll show you what this looks like on the actual figure. This is the same way that pretty much most all of the newer Predators work, but there is a little hole here where this tab at the bottom goes in. That goes in and up, and then there is a tab on the top of his shoulder that this thing just pops right on in. And there you have it. He's got his shoulder cannon, which looks really, really cool. This one's actually fits a lot easier than some of them, and it really doesn't cause too much issue for head articulation on this particular unmasked head. And last but not least is his spear, and this is really cool. It's got really nice detail work. You can see there's a bunch of spears on this particular spear. So somebody tell me in the comments. I can't remember if these spears actually shoot out. I can't remember, but this is really cool. The detail work in the sculpt is really nicely done. They did a great job. And then with that black wash, it just really stands out. The only issue that mine has is it's a little bit warped, but a little bit of heat will probably fix that right up. So the big question is this pack really worth the money? Because this thing is around $50 to $60. I don't remember how much it was. I think it was almost 60 bucks. Is it worth the money? I would say yes. This is definitely worth the money with all the accessories that we get. The paint and sculpt work that's on both of these figures is really, really nice. The added pieces, especially on the Bad Blood figure, I think Neca did a really good job. Yes, there are a few points that I'm not a huge fan of, but overall I'm very, very pleased with this set. I think you should go get it. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, leave a comment, let me know what you think of this set. Do you have it? Are you waiting for it? Let me know, I'd love to hear it. And until next time, I'll see you later.